Okay, so if moms are feeling a little bit stressed out, where can they find support? So you guys probably know this. The research is going to show that moms that have strong support systems for breastfeeding have better outcomes breastfeeding. That would just make sense. And they are going to feel like they know how to do it better. They're going to have more confidence. They're going to have more knowledge and understanding. So any way that we can have support systems in the relationship she has to support her in breastfeeding and educate her, she's going to feel like she's doing a better job and want to continue doing it longer. Mother's Mommy support groups. I have one more clip I want to show you guys. I just couldn't pass this up. It's also a funny one. Some of you may have seen it on the internet. But this idea that when you have a baby, and you might have some of your friends that have babies, or you might meet new moms from different groups. You go to the park, you meet moms. You kind of get a network of old and new friends that you have that are kind of in the same mommy boat as you are. You can join Mommy and Me clubs, Mommy and Me groups. I'm the personality where I'm very honest and real. I'm a very authentic person. And not everyone is like that, and I understand that. But I'm not comfortable hanging out with moms that aren't that way. So you kind of get into your groups of moms where you feel the most comfortable. And you find, being a mom, that there are a lot of moms out there that have very strong opinions about things right off the bat, and that you'll know if that's going to work with your mommy group. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. So we know that moms, if they have strong support systems for breastfeeding, they're going to have better outcomes. So what we would see is moms are going to feel more comfortable, confident in knowing what they're doing with breastfeeding. They're going to have more information on what to do, what not to do with breastfeeding, better expectations. So of all the people that we think about when a woman gets pregnant and she's transitioning into being a mom, I think as soon as the day you get pregnant, you start talking to other moms and thinking about the moms in your life and the other women you've seen raise children on what to do and what not to do. So that dialogue begins at the very beginning. It continues until never. And we're always having kids that are always growing to different ages, and so we're always going to be talking to other moms about what's best. So mommy support groups can be excellent. They can provide a lot of information about what to expect through the different parts in the transitions, how to avoid problems, how to resolve issues before they even come up with the children, with family members, with partners and spouses. So they can be a really big source of support. They can be. The other thing I will say today, in 2018, a lot of the connections we can have, not just with physical moms, but we can get into online groups. I was in several different online groups, becoming pregnant, having the child, and I still am today. And I will say half of it's very good and helpful, half of it can be not so good and helpful, like a lot of social media outlets today. So I want to show you guys a little clip about how mommy groups can be helpful and not helpful.
Police have arrived.
100% breastfed. Oh. Well, you push. We cuddle.
Yeah, cuddling is bonding.
Helicopter mom, 12 o'clock.
Must be mommy's day off.
Ow, disposable diaper. Well, apparently we don't care about the environment.
Oh, look, it's crunchy granola mom.
It's getting real.
I wonder what it's like being a part-time mom.
Ooh. Stay-at-home moms.
I wonder what they do all day. Mani-pedis.
Looks like some moms are too lazy to breastfeed.
You want a piece of this?
Oh, you want a piece of this? Well, I'll show you some screen-free parenting.
Great.
I think. Yeah, go.
Let's go. Oh, we're back.
Let's do this! Oh, wait, guys. Gosh. Oh.
remember at my first child's baby shower, I laid a book out for the moms that were there to write some advice or information for me because they'd already gone through the process. And my one really good friend said there's going to be a lot of opinions out there. Don't take any of them. And I wouldn't say don't take any of them because you can get a lot of support from physical moms and online mom groups, but just make sure that you go in knowing that you're going to get a lot of different opinions and that you need to sort through them, pick the one that's going to be best for your family and for your children. So that was a really cute video, but ends on a positive note. So our doctors can also be helpful too to go in. We talked earlier in lecture about being someone who is an informed decision maker with the medical system. So when you go in and you pick a doctor to be your pediatrician, you might want to ask them a few questions at the beginning of how they feel about breastfeeding and make sure that their ideas and their belief systems match with yours and your family's. But physicians are probably going to be another go-to place to call, and all first-time moms and second and third-time moms, I think, make a lot of phone calls to the physician's office, asking lots of questions. And don't ever be afraid, and help ensure the moms that you're working with to never be afraid to ask silly questions, because there really are no silly questions. Employers, I didn't know too much about what my employer offered for as far as parental leave policies, but I know when I got pregnant, I went to them. So encourage moms to go to their employers to see what options they have, what help, support. Even breastfeeding moms going back to work, if there are places, how flexible is the schedule for them, if there are places where they can breastfeed their child on site, or if the mom's breastfeeding or pumping for her child, if there are places private that she can go and time allotted during the day to do that. I think we're becoming a lot more open-minded, and communities, policies, places of employment are being more supportive, hopefully for moms to be moms and dads to be dads, but for moms, particularly breastfeeding moms. The baby's dad. So dad is can be a big help in a lot of ways. First thing for for you guys going to be lactation consultants, to help educate the moms and let them know it's normal that they might have to educate dads about breastfeeding. Many first-time dads, this is kind of a new idea for them, especially if they haven't been around other couples or families that have breastfed before. So I know a common thing that dads might say, and I know my husband was concerned, is the baby getting enough food? And my husband's a big Italian man. He eats a lot of food, and he was worried about our babies, both of my son and daughter, getting enough food and nutrients just from breastfeeding. So to make sure the mom's confident in that information so that she can share that with her partner is a big thing. Something that no one told me about that I'll share with you is just the whole idea of dads being comfortable with, or the partner being comfortable with the mom breastfeeding in public, around other people. That's something my husband and I had to have a discussion on throughout, because I was very comfortable. I'm breastfeeding my child, I'm feeding him and her. My husband took some time. He had a learning curve, getting comfortable with his wife and her breast out in public, covered or not covered, feeding our child. So I know with my son, who was my firstborn, it was less comfortable. With my daughter, my husband had gotten comfortable, I had gotten comfortable. And when you're in a location and everyone's just comfortable and it's natural, it helped me. It helped me not be so uptight. I know with my husband, his job, his role was always to make sure I was covered. I said, the baby's hungry, and get the cover out. He was the cover patrol, And he got a lot more comfortable, and I think it took a lot of the pressure off of me and just made it a more natural experience. So that's something that I think dads can be educated on, and educate other fathers. Hey, if she's going to breastfeed, and just make sure everyone's comfortable with it. I think this is something, too, that we're seeing changing as we're getting into a more tolerant time for breastfeeding and supportive of moms doing breastfeeding. And then same goes for other family members as well. My parents, they were from a different generation, so they had different ideas about breastfeeding, similar to kind of my husband as the baby getting enough food and nutrients. So, family members, anyone that the mom is going to be around, if they're in support of her breastfeeding, then it's always a positive thing. And so as a lactation consultant, what are you able to do, or what's the best thing that you can do? I'll tell you, I had 2 different experiences with lactation consultants, with my son and my daughter, and both experiences involved not only the information that I was given from the lactation consultant, but the overall tone. So with my son, my firstborn, I had an experience in the hospital with the lactation consultants that they weren't as supportive. I felt rushed. They didn't take as much time as to explain things to me. And then I went to my physician, and I ended up not having a very supportive physician, and she was worried about my son gaining weight. So I ended up supplementing him a lot earlier than I wanted to. With my daughter, I had a very much more positive experience. The lactation consultants in the hospital were very supportive. They were quiet and calm, and they would sit and, be okay with me asking questions. So the overall tone and the feeling I got from them was something different. And then after I went home, and I was worried about my daughter gaining enough weight, which is another common fear of mothers, especially with breastfeeding for the first time. And so I remember calling the lactation consultant from the hospital and asking her, what was going on, and I was worried. And I explained to her that, in the morning I would breastfeed, and then I would have a little bit extra after my morning feed, and I was excited to save it because then she would have an extra for the next feeding. And just one sentence, one conversation with a lactation consultant explaining to me what you guys have probably already learned about supply and demand, that if you have less, that if your body is needing to produce more, if you're needing more supply to empty out your breast so that the child is needing to get more from you, then your body will naturally respond with producing more milk. And just understanding the concept of supply and demand made a lot of sense and changed a lot of it really helped me with breastfeeding my second. So I want you guys to take just a minute and think about, pull out your paper and pencil and think about specifically how you think these support systems can best help moms in supporting them to breastfeed. And so jot down maybe 3 or 4 different things that you think, ideas that you can come up with that each of the bulleted points could do to help, to be better helpful to moms who are breastfeeding. So take a few minutes. Okay, so I'll just place up some of the ones that I mentioned, and hopefully your list can add. So dads can be encouraging, supporting, anything that they can say to help moms feel good and confident about about breastfeeding, chores, anything in the house. For me and my husband, I basically wanted my partner to just make it so that when I went to go breastfeed and had to breastfeed, everything else was kind of handled or managed. So talk with the moms that you're working with about what their partners can help do to make the breastfeeding experience easier for them. Whatever mom needs. I said, my husband was very good with pillows, helping me be comfortable as I was breastfeeding. If I needed something to drink, to get it for me. Mommy support groups, we talked about them. They can provide understanding, sharing. Another thing is local information. If you move into a community or live in a community where you connect with other moms in the community, they'll have information to share with you about places to go, people to see, resources that can be sought out in the nearby community, places to shop even, information about those types of things. So it's good to have some type of a network of moms local that you can talk with about breastfeeding in the area. Again, the doctor can provide any type of education in addition to what a mom can get from the lactation consultant. Employers, I mentioned a lot of these. Schedule flexibility is important. Time flexibility, possibly, that mom works. So these are ideas that the mom can talk with her employers about after having the baby. Other family members, I mentioned, communication they're going to have with their parents, grandparents, other older females in the family, what their experiences were, if they were in a time that they had breastfed or if they bottle fed, and what their experience was. It's helpful for moms just to hear other moms' experiences, I think. And then I mentioned this. Obviously, the lactation consultant providing information, education that the mom's lacking. But again, I think this is a big part. Empathy, skills, sensitive approach, normalizing a lot of things. We'll talk in just a minute about another theory that I'm going to introduce to you guys. But just the idea that the lactation consultant can normalize how mom's feeling and then provide her information. I'll give a better illustration of that in just a minute when we talk about the next theory. Okay, so introducing a second theory to our lecture today, I wanted to talk a little bit about social exchange theory, particularly about the idea and the decision of choosing to breastfeed or not. It's a very, can be a calculated decision, so I wanted to present this theory that we use in family studies. So what social exchange theory says in the family studies field is that people are motivated by self-interest, that we want to do things that bring us pleasurable things and avoid things that are costly. So that when we make a decision, we're very rational and we make kind of a pro and con list of all the things that are pleasurable or positive about a certain decision, and then those that are negative. And then we just kind of do a back and forth weighing before we then choose to make a decision. So in the family studies field, a lot of times this theory is applied to deciding to get divorced. So a man or a woman who is in the process of thinking about getting divorced or staying married, they, for example, according to this theory, would make a list of all the benefits they're getting from the relationship, all the costs from the relationship, and based on that rational weighing of costs and benefits, they would decide whether or not to stay in the marriage or not. Another term that's important is comparison level and comparison level for alternatives. And we do this too, according to this theory, when we make decisions. So comparison level says is that we compare our situation to others. So specifically, we judge our costs and rewards ratio by what we feel we deserve and by what others in a similar situation are experiencing. And then this evaluation affects our satisfaction and our current situation. So going back to the idea of getting divorced or not, the comparison level would, a person going through this decision-making process according to this theory would look at his or her pros and cons, and then they would also look at the people in their lives that they know that are also married to see, compare their situation to theirs, to say, well, what is their marriage like, or what is this person's single life like? So you're doing all these pros and cons by comparing it to others. And then this last part, the comparison level for alternatives, says that we compare our situation with possible alternatives. So very fitting to divorce. If you're thinking about getting a divorce, you're not happy in a relationship, probably factored into that calculation is there something else out there that looks better to you, another partner or a single life or just being on your own. So you're going to compare exactly what you have to what else might be out there for you. And that's how we make decisions, according to this theory. One last concept I want to share with you is this norm of reciprocity. And this idea is that in any type of a relationship, it has to be pretty balanced. So if we feel like we're giving more than we're receiving, we're not going to be happy. Similarly, if we feel like we're taking more than we're receiving, this theory is going to also say that there's going to be a level of discomfort or guilt because you feel like you're getting more than you're giving. So the norm of reciprocity, according to social exchange theory, says that in any relationship, we need to feel like it's balanced and even for the most part, that it's pretty much even give and take over the long term. Okay? So I want you guys now, again, to take a break for a couple minutes, and I want you to think about you personally. Can you think of an example when you've applied this theory in your own life? We all have. You just may not have thought about it in these terms of the social exchange theory. So I want you to think about how you applied it into your own life, come up with an example or two, and then also how can this theory be applied to the choice a woman makes of choosing to breastfeed or not. Okay, so take a couple minutes, write down some ideas, and we'll talk about those. Okay, so I do this in several of the classes I teach here at CSUN, where I have students talk about this theory. And by far, there are 3 or 4 examples that I hear most often from my students about how they've applied this to their lives. And I would say the top 2 would be romantic relations and career choices. So staying or leaving a romantic relationship that you're currently in, or career choices, the pros and cons of going back to school, going to graduate school, working while in school, going full-time or part-time, that a lot of students, these are the kind of issues that are going on in your minds right now about how you weigh the pros and cons before making a decision. Okay? Another topic that I hear from some students' responses, and we also see in the family studies literature, is the concept of why an individual stays in an abusive relationship. So in the case of domestic violence. So for some of us, when I teach that class, it's hard for some of us to understand why someone would stay in that situation. But when you think about the pros and the cons list, and we do this, we go through an exercise where I do this with the class, of the pros and the cons, that there are some pros and things that make sense for them staying in that relationship, it helps us to understand that person's perspective a little better. So I think these 2 topics, divorce, domestic violence, are very relevant to social exchange theory. But as soon as I started prepping for this class, I thought definitely this theory could be applied to whether or not you choose to breastfeed or not. So I just came up with some pros and cons. First and foremost, for those of you who are going to be lactation consultants working with moms and families, it's good to know this because I think these are going to be some of the most common ones that you'll hear, the pros and the cons. So to have this information where you're talking with the mom and she comes up with, so the pros you will definitely share with her and help her better explain and understand are the nutritional benefits that come with breastfeeding, bonding, economics. It's cheaper. You don't have to buy all the formula in the bottles. It's convenient. I know for me that was a selling point. Just leave the house anytime the baby's getting fussy, tired, hungry, put them on the breast. It's very convenient for a mom. And the physical benefits. When we breastfeed, the oxytocin that we release has our uterus return to its normal size. There are some weight loss benefits. Women who breastfeed tend to lose more of their pregnancy weight faster than mothers that don't breastfeed. And then there's some research that shows that women who breastfeed have lower risk of breast and ovarian cancer. So that's good information for the mom to have. And this is easy information that you can explain to her. Where you need to kind of finesse and be a little bit more sensitive in your approach is understanding the cons that you will probably hear. So obviously the physical, social, then the time commitment that moms have to go through to breastfeed their child. Embarrassment to breastfeed in public, lack of social support, discomfort or fear that breastfeeding will hurt, and the lack of confidence in one's ability to produce enough breast milk to nourish the baby. So from my discussion with you guys in lecture today already, I've shared with you examples of all of these that happened to me throughout the course, and I think most moms feel a lot of these. So for you as a lactation consultant to come in saying, I understand that you're going to have some of these fears. I mean, thinking about using your breast to feed a child, it's already a sensitive area. I can understand, and I hear all kinds of moms that tell me that's one of their fears. However, and then that's where it's going to be important for you to share information, maybe share past stories of what you've learned from working with other moms. But I think it's important, the first step, to come in and say, I completely understand how that could be one of your fears or one of your concerns or worries about breastfeeding. But here's some information that you might want to consider that might pro and con it. Make that con seem less of a con, and the information I'm going to give you add to your pro list about choosing to breastfeed. Okay, so postpartum physical adjustment. One of the quotes I always remember when I was pregnant is a woman wrote on one of the support groups that I was on that said, you know, it takes a woman 10 months to grow and develop this baby. At least give a mom 10 months to get her body back to where it was before having the baby. But we know women's bodies, it's going to take a little bit of time to readjust after having the baby. So we're going to have bodily changes, attitude changes, to let the mom know that recovery and physical discomfort is going to be normal. There's going to be ups and downs physically, mentally feeling about how your body feels. I have the two mom pictures up here. I have the sexy mom and the regular mom.